Hey YouTube, this is Kevin Boland of Boland Small Engine. Since my last video, I have actually cleaned the carburetor up, the jet as well. I do want to tell you guys that the jet was really clogged up bad. Okay, it was pretty obvious as to why the engine wasn't running. This is basically why the engine wasn't running. If you look closely enough, you'll see there's two holes, one here and one on this side, and then there's one in the center. Okay, this is basically how the gas gets supplied to the carburetor. This jet's very important. What I like to use when I'm cleaning out these little jets is I like to use a little small drill index like this. This one ranges from 61 to 80. It's very handy. I think this particular drill bit is a 71. I'll make sure for you guys. Yeah, I'm correct. That's a 71. And the 71 I use to clean this hole right here. Okay, it's going to be a little hard to see, but you can see right here in the center. I use a 61 to clean these holes right here, here, and here. It's actually pretty easy. Of course, I got the 71 at the present moment. As I say, you need a 61 to do this. Just push it through, turn it a few times. The grit and the grime will generally come out on the drill bit. Makes it very handy. Get you a little carburetor cleaner after you've, of course, cleaned this hole and this hole, and spray through it. You want to make sure that you spray very thoroughly. What I actually like to do is put my finger on one side, allow the carburetor cleaner to penetrate the other, and of course you'll see that there's a little, see how it's sprayed out? You'll see that it sprays through very easily. If it sprays through very easily like that, you're in pretty good shape. Also, there's a reason that I have this little stylus stream light. I absolutely love this. Okay, wonderful little light. I use it for just about everything: chainsaws, lawnmowers, weed eaters, you name it. Okay, and I'll show you why. They come in very handy if you want to make sure that you've done a thorough job of cleaning jets and carburetors. I'm going to go ahead and turn this light on. As you can see, they're extremely bright. And if you look closely enough, maybe I can get a little closer to the camera. If you look closely enough, you'll see, you can actually see into that hole. So I'm trying to, I'll try to blind the light from you guys. See? If you look in there, you can actually see that hole is completely clean. You can see right through it. The light actually exposes the hole. So that's really nice. Same thing for here. You can look on this side and see that the light shines through on the other side. And you'll know you've done a very thorough job. You can do the exact same thing for the carburetor. You'll see that I'm shining the light here. If you look into the carburetor there, you'll see the light shining through. You know that's clean. If you pull the Welch plugs, okay, which would be here, unfortunately this carburetor doesn't have one, but on most there's a Welch plug here. You can actually use that after you pulled the Welch plug, shine the light down this hole, and you'll be able to see there's 3 or 4 little holes here. You'll be able to see those. Once again, it's just a really nice little tool. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the kits that are available that you can buy to rebuild your carburetor. I get these kits from TE Warehouse. I recommend TE Warehouse for anybody. They're absolutely wonderful. Okay, Very quick shipping. They generally have all the parts you need. You just need to know what you're asking for. Some of these parts are aftermarket. Some of them are OEM. I gotta be honest, I have had no problem out of the parts that were aftermarket. They work exceptionally well, and you get a better deal. I've been using these parts for several years. They hold up very well, guys. The first kit I'm about to show you, it's this one. It comes, of course, with your gaskets, your float bowl gasket, even to the gasket that goes up onto your intake manifold, the sealing washer. It even has the debris sponges. If you chose to pull those out, you know, you'll generally find them right here, right underneath of your throttle. See the throttle butterfly there? Pull that throttle butterfly out. Or, I'm sorry. See the throttle butterfly right here? You pull the throttle butterfly out, and of course you'll be able to expose the shaft, okay, your throttle shaft, and those little sponge pieces that you see on the inside here, which this fits many models. You can insert them right underneath. To be honest, I don't really feel that it's necessary, because honestly within a year they'll wear off. But anyway, the option's there if you wanted to do it. The part number for this kit is 061047. You're also, in addition to 061047, you're going to need an inlet needle and seat. Okay, you can see why I say inlet needle and seat. Part number is 081096. Some people freak out when they see that there's a green Viton seat instead of the red. Guys, there's really no difference, okay? I really don't know why that they claim there is. There's really not, okay? This is just an aftermarket, and like I said, it works very well. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and open it. I'm going to show you how I actually put my carbs back together. First thing I like to do is, as I mentioned earlier, I like to make sure that I have the right side of this seat facing towards me. Okay? From there, I'll take my Tecumseh tool, this end, and I'll apply a little oil to it. There's a reason I do that. See this opening? It makes it easier for it to slide in. See how easy that was? From there, if these have laid in a bag for a while, you can dip them straight down into the oil. The oil will not hurt them at all. I like to do that just so if it's dry, you're not going to crush the rubber as you're pushing it into your carburetor. As I said, this is the inlet right here. So just make sure, put a little oil on it. The oil will go a long ways. As I said, you know, just more or less dip it in there. Push it down. You'll feel it. You'll feel it. Just like that. I like to twist a little. You don't have to, but I like to. And wiggle. Just to make sure that it's seated properly. And then you can pull the tool straight out. Pretty effortless. This, of course, is the new inlet needle. This is optional. You do not have to dip it in oil unless you want to. I do. The only reason I do is I like to generally take pop-off pressure, okay, of the carburetors after I've rebuilt them. And I'll explain what pop-off pressure is momentarily. I'm going to go ahead and install the inlet needle onto the float. Said it was. And then I'm going to install the hinge pin. Once again, you can use a little oil on the hinge pin. It doesn't hurt anything. I like to do it. The hinge pin basically just gets pushed in, as you can see. The next thing you want to look for, sorry about that guys, I bumped the drawer. You want to look and see if your float's level, okay? In this particular case, this isn't too bad. It actually has a little room for the Viton to expand. I will tell you, ideally, you want them to lay about like that, about flat. But this is actually a little better than ideal, okay? And as I say, the reason being is when the Viton swells, it'll actually come up into a level position. Over time, the ethanol is going to make that Viton swell. So this is actually ideal. In this kit, I generally use all the gaskets. This gasket, however, is used on another model. And as you can see, the sealing washer is red on this one. Guys, there's no difference. Okay, see, this is the old one, this is the new one. I take the sealing washer, I place it over the jet. I like to take the float bowl gasket, dip my finger in a little oil, coat it. The only reason I'm doing this is because there was a lot of corrosion, as you can see, that I had to take away from this carburetor. Once again, this is optional. I like to take just a little oil, dip it on the threads. This oil will not clog up your jets, okay guys? I know you're worried about that. As you can see, some of the oil went down into the hole. Don't worry about it. The gasoline will dilute it. It'll be just fine. The reason that I put a little oil on the threads is the carburetor. Okay, the threads, if they're real dry, it's faster for the corrosion to come back. At this point, I'm going to go ahead, place the float bowl back on. As you can see, I cleaned it. I cleaned it with a piece of Scotch-Brite. All I'm doing at the present moment, guys, I'm sorry I got out of frame, is I'm just tightening up that bolt. Or I should say nut, bolt nut. And you don't want to tighten it really tight, you just want to snug it up. From here I like to just take a little small paper towel, wipe everything off. This really comes in handy the way I showed you, because you don't have a dry needle and you don't have a dry seat. If you recall a while ago, I told you guys about pop-off pressure. I have an EMAC kit, which you've seen in prior videos. I can choose to use it. As you can see, they make many of these little pressure kits. I actually have a pop-off pressure kit highly similar to this inside the house. Hell, I've got probably 5 or 6 of them. But for convenience, I'm going to use this one. I already have it hooked up. It's made by Powerbuilt. You can get these on Amazon. I use them for steel chainsaws, actually all my chainsaws. And you can see, I'll just put my finger down here and you'll see that I got it on the pressure side. And that it'll hold. There, with hold my finger tight enough, it'll hold. See? Basically the same thing here. As you can see, I've hooked it up to the carburetor. Carburetor here. There, of course, is the gauge. And I'm going to pump. Oh. Sorry about that, guys. I had this valve up a little. I was wondering why it wasn't sealing. Okay. As you can see, that's holding pretty good. Okay, I'm at about 3 pounds right there. If you keep it going, you'll hear it. It'll pop off, and that's all about pop-off pressure right there. And as you can see, it's holding pretty good. The reason you want to check your pop-off pressure is because you do not want to put this back together and have the gas pouring through the carburetor. If you do it the way that I showed you, you will not have any problems. It's also a good idea to take the carburetor when it's hooked up to the pump, which I'll be out of frame if I do this, but once it's hooked up, to turn the carburetor over, make sure you have adequate pressure that can come through it, and then flip it back over and make sure that the pressure can actually stay in the gauge. Okay, like so. These gaskets, of course, are used, as I said earlier, on the intake. It's just a sealing ring for the intake. And of course, this gasket is used for your primer. As you can see, I'm just going to replace this gasket as well. Same gasket. I'm going to go ahead and end this part, which is part 5 of the video. And when you see me again, I will have placed the carburetor back on the unit. And hopefully I can find a little gas around here and have this push more started for you guys.